Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello and welcome to lucky episode 13 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and in today's episode, I have a wonderful conversation with T.S. Paul. Now, T.S. Paul, or Scott as I know him, writes science fiction, space opera, military cookbooks, and paranormal fiction. His books used to be exclusively available through Amazon Kindle and Kindle Unlimited, but towards the tail end of 2017, he started to publish some of those titles wide to Kobo, iBooks, Nook, and Google Play. Now, one thing I was surprised to learn is that in a very short time, he's already been killing it in his sales on Kobo. I mean killing it, doing amazingly well, far, far sooner than most authors do. So I'm curious to figure out what he was doing. And I also found it interesting that Scott doesn't follow the age-old advice in the indies space, at least, of having your own author newsletter so you can be in contact with your fans rather than relying on the retailers to do that for you. Instead of building an author newsletter, he used his blog, a blogger.com blog, and a Facebook author page, and some targeted, very specifically targeted Facebook ads, not to mention really awesome images of his cat Merlin, to slowly build to a very specific niche target audience and then end up earning revenues well beyond six figures in just a matter of a couple of years. We talk about that. We talk about this cool new van he just bought, which is part of another unique marketing technique, and several other things that indicate that going your own way and doing your own thing for your own target audiences is key. But before we do that, I want to talk about the sponsorship. And this week's Tongue Twister is sponsored by Findaway Voices, and Will from Findaway Voices sent this to me. So now here we go. I'm supposed to say this 5 times fast, but because I thought it might be a little bit more fun, I'm going to use Brian's mother's voice from the Monty Python Life of Brian. So first, let me warm up. There you are! Oh, and to think of all the love and affection I wasted on you. Oh, go ahead, be crucified. See if I care. Okay, that got me into the voice. I got Brian's mom's voice down relatively well. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do the tongue twister in Brian's mom's voice. Bad kid pulled cord, pulled cord. 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 Whoops. I should have said a swear word there. Now let me try that in my normal voice. Pad kid poured curd pulled cod. Cat pad kid poured. He poured stuff. He poured curd pulled cod. He did. Pad kid poured curd pulled cod. Pad kid poured curd pulled cod. I can't do this in my voice or in Brian's mother's voice. And I'll have to bleep out that nasty word I said because I want to keep this family friendly. Well, that is the tongue twister for this week. Thanks, Will. That was painful. Probably way more painful for listeners than it was for me. And if you want to learn more about Findaway Voices, check out starkreflections.ca/findaway. Okay, that's enough of me embarrassing myself. Let's get on to the interview with T.S. Paul. Hey, Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Now, just before we started recording, we were just talking about T.S. Paul, and I had always thought it was Timothy Scott Paul. And T.S. Paul is not a pseudonym; it's actually a real name.
It is my real name. Scott's my middle name, so I don't use my first name. It starts with a T. And
Are you going to tell our listeners
I'm
what
not
the
going to tell our
secret name
listeners.
is? Oh, no.
I'm not going to tell our listeners. So yeah, T.S. Paul is my real name. It makes it so much easier. If somebody writes me a check to T.S. Paul, I can just stick it at the bank.
Oh, that's
And,
cool.
so you're like, who is this pseudonym? Yeah, whatever. No, I picked it because it was easy. It was an easy pen name to do, and it wasn't like a weird one. I had thought of some weird ones. My wife was like, "Don't call yourself that." So yeah, it's just kind of goofy. I had actually been called by TS very briefly when I was in college.
Oh, really? But you've been Scott since I've known you.
Yes,
So,
I've been
okay.
Scott, and yeah. So I was never called by first name. I never went by it. The family always called me Scott.
Right.
So it just is what I go by.
Fair enough. Now, the other thing, too, because your last name can also be a first name.
Yes.
Right. Because I write under Mark Leslie because nobody can spell or pronounce Lefebvre. So is Paul your actual last name, or is that
Paul
a
is
name?
my actual last name. My father's name is Frank Paul.
Oh, that's very cool. I like that.
So yes. And a funny story for that is when he was married to my mother, everyone called him, because his middle name is Bob, is Robert.
Right.
So when everyone called him Bob when he was married to my mother. So then when I was older, I had moved from Georgia in the United States, because you're Canadian.
Yes.
I had moved from Georgia to St. Louis, Missouri, to stay with him while I was looking for a job. And he had, of course, remarried, and everyone called him Frank. So it really freaked me out, because I was used to Bob and I'm hearing Frank. So it was very,
who is this guy? Yeah.
Who is this strange man? Yes. And my mother, who used to call him Bob, calls him Frankenbob now, which I think is hilarious.
Oh, that's awesome. Frankenbob. It's almost Dr. Frankenbob.
It is, and it's just kind of freaky. So it's fun. It's just those family kind of goofy things that go on in your family.
Does anyone call you by the T name?
Only if they're like from the IRS. I'm kidding.
Okay, fair enough. Or when you're in trouble with your mom, right?
No, she doesn't call her. She doesn't call her the T name. It's
See how I'm trying to trick you into saying it, right?
Yeah. No.
Okay, enough trickery. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. Now, one of the first things is I want to go back to every single podcast out there, every single bit of writer advice you hear. The first thing you hear is thou must have an author newsletter.
I don't have one.
And you don't have a newsletter, and yet you're hugely successful. Let's talk a little bit about that. So instead of a newsletter, how are you communicating with your fans?
So I communicate with my fans via social media. I started out with a website on Blogspot. And funny story is, it does not have a domain name. I just recently freaked out somebody with that. I'm doing a joint secret project with science fiction author Blaze Ward. And he's like, send me your domain name. And I'm like, I don't have one of those. And he's like, what? So yeah, he was kind of freaked out by that, just a little. So yeah, I don't use a domain name. I have a blog that I use as a website.
And the blog is?
The blog is tspaul.blogspot.com.
Or .ca if you're in Canada. It'll automatically redirect.
I've been using it for 2 years, a little over 2 years.
Only 2 years. Okay.
Yeah, I've only been writing since February of 2016.
So February 2016 is when you started.
That's when I started. Yes. And so I use that. I use Facebook. I established my Facebook page very early, like the second day, and just started pumping it. And I've got 3,500 followers on Facebook.
Okay.
It's a little tiny bit more. It's like 3,508 or something like that.
Right.
So I've got 3,500 followers on Facebook, and then I have no idea on my website. 85 people follow it, but I get like 3 or 4 or 5 or 600 hits a day. So I don't know if those are followers or just people who are hitting, just to see if there's something new.
So you're not doing any analytics on what's bringing people there, or?
I do a little bit on the Blogspot. I can tell where they're coming from. Mainly they're coming from Google.
Okay.
So there's just tons of people Googling me trying to find more information.
Right.
When I first started writing in 2016, I was doing free stories once a week. And I, of course, stopped doing that because my books got longer and I was writing a lot more.
So were you doing the stories on the blog, or were you
Yes,
publishing?
I was doing the stories on the blog.
Okay.
So every I had Wilson Wednesday. Wilson was the name of my computer character in my science fiction series.
Right.
So Wilson Wednesday, I would do a free short story every week. So I wrote 45 short stories in 2016.
Wow. Okay.
Every one a week.
Something
So-
about that consistency, right? People knew
Yes.
to come back on Wednesdays and read about Wilson.
Yes. So I started bundling them and putting them in anthologies. So I have 2 anthologies from that time period.
Okay.
And then I use the other stories for different things. But I'm kind of doing a twist on that now with my new serial series
Okay.
that I started doing 2 months ago, or a month ago,
And
February.
what's that called?
It's called the Jack Dalton Monster Hunter series.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So how that's working is on the first of the month, I release the new book.
Okay.
And then on the 3rd Wednesday of that month, you can read the current book for free on my website. It's a giant post. So
Okay.
the books have been running about, because they're serials, they've been running at between 8 and 10,000 words.
Okay.
So there's a 10,000 word post on my website.
So wait, hang on a second. You're not posting a downloadable EPUB or Mobi.
Oh, good God, no.
You're actually posting the raw text right
Yes.
on the blog, like through Blogspot.
Yes, right on the post. So
Okay.
it's 24 hours. You can go to my website. You can read the book. There's a link on there to buy the book if you really want to buy it.
Okay.
And then you can also buy the next book in pre-order. And if there's a previous book, you could do that. Now, book 3 is set to go out April the 1st. Book 2 is which will be on my website tomorrow,
Which
as
would be
in
the 21st of
21st of March.
right.
And then book 1, which was February's book, is still available, of course, everywhere. It's a wide series, so it's available all the major vendors.
So Jack Dalton is wide, right?
Yes, Jack
Okay.
Dalton is wide, and the goofy thing about it is that it's set inside a KU exclusive series.
Oh, that's funny. So it's in the same universe as your Kindle or your Kindle Direct publishing.
Yes,
Select.
but
Okay.
it's more like a prequel kind of thing because it takes place in the 1950s. It takes place in 59 is when it starts.
Oh, okay.
So my current series takes place in current modern times. So this is like the ancestry of the thing. It's a character who popped up in book 2. He's the trainer of the main character, and he's like the mentor, and he's the lone human that ran the division ahead of her, and blah, blah, blah. So it's his story. And a lot of people have said, oh, you need to write Jack, you need to write Jack. And I'm like, I don't want to write Jack. But then I got to thinking about, because, I have enough. And then I got to thinking about doing this series. I'm like, hey, let's make it a serial. And a lot of people are like, you're out of your mind. But I've heard that before. And I've also got it priced at $1.99. And people say, $1.99, that's a crazy price. Yes.
Yeah.
But it does seem to work better internationally.
Now that's because so $1.99. So it's $1.99 US, $1.99 Canadian, Australian, etc. Or do you just set US and then leave it alone?
I set US, but I've actually got it set just a little tiny bit higher for Europe.
Okay.
But just a little
really?
bit.
Even though the euro is stronger than the American dollar. That's weird.
It seems to work. So whatever.
So hang on a second. I want to go back to this because I'd even, when I was at Kobo, I produced a study. I remember Mark Coker producing a study, and we showed that $1.99 was a dead price point. But that was for full-length novels.
Well,
Right? And these are serialized, like what, 10,000-ish words?
more like 9,000-ish, but yes.
Okay. Okay. So for something that length, that almost seems to be
Book
you've discovered an optimum price point.
Book 1 has sold over 1,500 copies.
Okay.
Book 2, since we're still in book 2 current month, it's done about 500 copies. I think a lot of people are waiting to see what happens with book 3, but still 2,000 copies for two books that are total words is less than 20,000.
That's amazing.
It's dollar amounts. You're looking at. I haven't looked at the wide numbers, but if you're looking at for Amazon, it's book 1's made $1,000.
Okay. Wow. So I want to come back to this as well, because when I met you a couple years ago I think it was at the Smarter Artist Summit in Austin.
It was.
Which was fun. We were sitting at the bar, which is my favorite place to meet people. And we were talking about stuff, and I was kind of blown away that you didn't have a newsletter, although you had all these followers. There's sort of two things that stuck in mind is how did you get so many followers on Facebook? And obviously, daily blog stats are pretty substantial.
Yeah.
And then the second question, well, Well, ask that first, and then I'll come to the second one, which
That's fine.
has to do with being exclusive to Amazon. So, because again,
I
remember, I was flabbergasted because I worked for a competitor at Amazon at the time.
Yes.
So let's talk about, you've got 3,500 Facebook followers. Was this because you took out ads? What were you doing?
So Austin was fun. I talked myself hoarse that week.
Arguing with all of us.
I talked. No, I wasn't so much arguing. People wanted to hear what I had to say, and the roar was so loud in that bar. Because the bar in the hotel was where all the authors were congregating after the conference part, and it was so loud you had to shout to be heard. Every night I couldn't hear. My wife was like, "You can't speak."
It wasn't from the karaoke; it was from the bar chatter.
No, I spent the entire time talking to people from 5 o'clock in the evening till like 2 in the morning. I was talking to people the entire time, all 3 days. So the trick with Facebook is. Just a tiny bit of background for me is that I used to work for Walden Books. So I was a Walden bookstore manager.
You got book selling in your blood like me.
Yeah. So I have some marketing book stuff that's in me. So I knew in my heart when I started doing this that new authors didn't make any money. So I didn't intend to make any money. So I knew that I needed to do social media because, for ebooks, it's hard to advertise that in a general world. How do you do it? You have to do it digitally. Right. So I knew that. So getting Facebook followers from dead zero is almost impossible. However, there's lots of tricks you can do. So one of the things that I did, which was kind of goofy, is once I was able to advertise, because I wasn't able to advertise until I had any money, because at that time I had nothing.
Right.
So I literally borrowed money from my wife and said, I'm taking $50. And she's like, what are you taking $50 for? So I ran a Facebook ad. And so what I did is I posted a picture of my cat. And I pushed it out to people who like cats and science fiction. And then ran it out for a weekend and then another weekend and that kind of thing. So then I let it run for a little bit. And then I pulled it back in. And then I posted an ad for my books to people who like cats and science fiction because I already had some followers who like cats. So I pushed it out to the cat people.
Okay. And
I started to get some likes on my page. And then it just snowballed. But it did take 2 years to do this. But the first year, I think I had, call it 1,000 followers, 1,500 followers by the time.
Still nothing to laugh at.
No. So, every now and then I do post cat videos or pictures of my own cat because I still have those cat people following me.
And you got to keep the cat people satisfied.
I got to keep the cat people happy.
And you have not written a cat cozy mystery yet.
No, but I have a cat character in my science fiction world.
Okay.
I created a race of cat robots.
So there's the crossover appeal right there. It's instantly part of your books.
And then Fergus, which is the unicorn character in my paranormal series, he is based upon the cat, his activities and how he acts. If he could talk, if the cat could talk, it's kind of Fergus. Fergus will be like, feed me now.
Okay.
What do you mean you don't have food in your hand? Why are you not feeding me? So that kind of thing. He's the kind of, he's based upon the cat, even though he has intellect and he can talk.
But yes, Fergus that's the name of your cat?
No, Merlin is the name of my cat. But
and you couldn't use that because that's a that's a tropey wizard name, right?
Well, it is, but I actually did. He is Merlin in the science fiction series. He's the king of cats in my.
Of course.
Sometimes I think I was on drugs, but I'm not. So, but no, so that's how I got started with the Facebook stuff. And I did little tiny ads. I did, 2-day ads, 3-day ads, boosted, non-boosted.
Right.
I did some experiments. I learned some things. I'm pretty good with ads. I don't pay attention to ROI, and that freaks people out too. So, my theory on Facebook ads is keep your ad in front of people's faces because eventually they will click on it.
Okay. So now I need to draw this. Did you have a link to the blog also on your Facebook page? Were you using those hand in hand?
Yes. Okay. And I was flipping back and forth. Sometimes I'd post things on the Facebook and then tell the people on the blog, or post things on the blog and tell the people on Facebook, keep it bouncing back and forth. And then when I started doing the free short stories, which was almost from day one, I was doing them every Wednesday. So I would write it Tuesday and post it Wednesday,
Okay.
unedited, and then they'd get to read it. And then eventually I collected them and put them into sets, and then used them for other things. But I never did the let's give away a story for free on the newsletter, because I didn't have one of those, and I still don't have.
So I think one of the things for blogging, for podcasting, for whatever, is the consistency. So every Wednesday you had a story. So 52. Oh no, you said it was 45 the first.
I didn't start until February. So
okay.
Yeah.
So you had almost a year's worth of weekly people.
Yes.
You became a habit. People went, oh, I like this character. I want to read more about Wilson. That was the first character they
Yes.
wanted to follow. And then they made it a habit, and that's how you brought them into the fold.
Yes.
And even if Facebook were to go away, you still have the blog that people are returning to, obviously returning to in droves, because 300 to 500 hits a day is not chump change.
No, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on I'm on Twitter, but it's not me. Fergus the Unicorn has a Twitter page, because he has his own Facebook page too, because I made him a public figure, because I thought it was funny. And Twitter. So Fergus the Unicorn has a Twitter page, and he comments on things as a unicorn would comment.
Of course. Well, how else would he?
Yeah, pretty much. So he'll say things like, the author that feeds me has a new book out. It's not about unicorns, but
I thought doesn't
check
the
it out.
Unicorn feed you?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, I want to come to the other thing, because you talked about the Jack Dalton series, which is a
Yes.
character that people were asking for.
Yes.
When I met you, you were all in on Amazon, or all in on Kindle, exclusive to that platform.
Yes.
Then you branched off and said, I'm going to try the Jack Dalton series wide, publishing it wide immediately rather than after the first 90 days. Two questions. Why, if you were doing so successfully on Amazon, in the Kindle Unlimited program, why would you go wide? And has it actually been worthwhile for you?
Well, last year, so we're talking 2017.
Okay.
I had been looking. It had been more than a year since I had published. A book in my science fiction series. So I have a universe for science fiction. I have a universe for paranormal. Paranormal is kind of what's making me the money. Science fiction. I like Athena Lee, and I like the series. I wrote 28 books my first year. So we're talking 10 months. I had 28 different editions out, and I kind of burned out big time on Athena Lee, and I didn't want to write anymore. And not Athena Lee. So I hadn't touched it since December of 2016. And so my numbers were fine until about mid-2017 for the science fiction series, and they kind of dropped like a stone because it's been a very long time. And those were, of course, Amazon exclusive. I was getting KU, but the KU dropped off pretty drastically. Right. So I was dithering. I was trying to make a decision if I wanted to take the science fiction series wide, because I'm not losing any money, because if the KU has dropped off, I'm still getting sales, but I'm not necessarily getting KU. It would hurt a little bit because I was going to lose a couple thousand in a month at KU, but it wasn't like it was a lot of thousand. We're talking like 2,000, not that much. Okay. So I was, dithering on that, and people would say, "Oh my God, 2,000." Yes, but I'm a six-figure author. Okay. So,
so a couple thousand a month is not going to make it.
It's not going to kill me. It is going to hurt me, but it's not going to kill me. So, because the paranormal pretty much keeps me in, energy drinks. So yeah, I'm trying to think what to say, and I've got one sitting right here in front of me. So I was at a conference. I was at NINC, and you saw me at NINC, which is Novelist.
Yeah, that was last fall, right?
That was in the fall. That was in October, and I actually I sat through your lecture for that, where you were talking about things. Now, see, I already sell in the Netherlands on Amazon.
Amazon, really? Okay.
I had created my own. And I've mentioned this to you. I had created my own market in the Netherlands because it was one of my experiments. I just tried to see. Right. I noticed there were countries I didn't sell in, and I was like, how can I build a base there So I actually built a sales base. I was selling about €2 a month, which is nothing. And I threw some ads at it, targeted only at the Netherlands, and built it from €2 a month to €50 a month.
And so you targeted the Netherlands on Amazon exclusive back then?
I targeted them through Facebook ads.
Okay, but this was with your stuff that was locked into.
This was stuff that was exclusive, yes. So
Okay.
I built a small audience in the Netherlands.
Okay.
So I had listened to your spiel about, Kobo and what was to offer and that sort of thing. And one of the things you said was you had an exclusive market in the Netherlands. And I'm like, well, hell.
Kobo Plus program, right? Which
Yes,
is kind of
Kobo
like Kindle
Plus.
Unlimited.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I made the decision in October. I unticked every book in my Athena Lee universe, which was 18 books. So I unticked all of them and let them drop out by themselves in December. Now, I could have called Amazon and said, hey, can you please take these out? However,
you did it naturally, right?
They tend to do things with a sledgehammer, not with a ball peen hammer. So, and I didn't want them to accidentally take out any of my my other series, which would have been nasty. So I just let them drop out. So they were all out by the 27th of December. So then I took them wide, and I went to Kobo. I went to D2D. I did the Smashwords, and then recently I got into Google, so they're on Google too. So
so they are now everywhere. And I remember you coming up to me towards the end of NINC when I was standing at one of those upright tables, and you said, "Hey, I just started to take this series out, and I'm gonna meander them out as they hit their renewal for the tour of duty." Okay.
Yes, because I wanted to let them come out naturally and not force it. They were still selling, and they still are selling. So
you're still making money off Amazon.
What's happening? For giving real numbers, is the Athena Lee series is making on Amazon about $2,500 to $3,000 per month. And that's in sales, not in KU, because there isn't any KU. However, there's
raw sales. Okay.
There is a few little, and I find it amusing. There is little trickles of KU that we'll see, like 50 book reads here and 20 reads here, and that's because what happens is
they grabbed it before,
grabbed it a long time ago, and they never read it, or they never finished reading it, or whatever.
Oh wow, so it's like a ghost effect of Kindle Unlimited.
It is, and I'll look and I'll see a page read. I'll go, okay,
this paranormal, right?
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. So, I'm still getting trickles, but we're talking $1. It's not like it's big money. So it's like $1. So
hang on. So is it 2,000? I just want to come back to it because I need to conceptualize this. How many books roughly is that? So it's 2,500 to 3,000 US a month from Kindle only. On how many titles? Is roughly 18 titles. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, there's 18 in that series now. So 18 titles. Now, this year I have since started to co-write with somebody else, a new series set in that universe. It doesn't have the main characters. It's got the robot characters, but it doesn't have the main characters. And we've got 2 books out in that. The 3rd book will be out hopefully this month.
Is this Blaze?
No, it's not.
Oh.
But it's with somebody else that's in that universe. The series is called Smuggle Life, kind of like Thug Life, only with smugglers. It's it's like Thug Life, but it's better. I'm kidding. But no, it's so Smuggle Life. It's a group of smugglers, and they've got their own quests, and they've also got bad guys chasing them. They're good. They're short, but they're very much like my writing was 2 years ago.
Okay.
To be truthful, I really don't like messing with that universe, but somebody said, "Hey, can I write a series in your universe?" I'm like, "Great, I'll help you." So, and then I have another co-writer who's actually going to finish it because I was going to end it at book 10 because I didn't want to write book 11 and 12. And, I actually had 11. I had 11. I had 3 chapters of 11 written, but I didn't want to finish it. And I had a cover, but I didn't want to finish it. So he's finishing it. And he's stalled out at the moment, but he's still working on it. So that's going on. But so after I went wide, January was kind of sucky. I think I made, I think it was like $200 on Kobo, which people would say, "Oh, that's great for the first month." Yes, it was pretty good.
Kobo for your first month. That is actually pretty stellar.
Yeah, and then D2D was nothing. It was like like $6 or something like that. And,
Right.
and we don't look at Smashwords. To be truthful, I don't look at Smashwords. I haven't been on there in a while. It's nothing. So February though, I did grand, so $1,000 on Kobo. So the way I look at it is, I'm
Wow.
still making $2,500 to $3,000.
That's almost half. That's almost half or a
Of-
third of what you're making on Amazon,
Yes.
which is pretty
So
spectacular.
The Kobo is just money on the table
Right.
that I'm picking up. And so far for March, I just looked at it, it was $700. So
And we're only on the 20th
We're
today,
only on
so
the
it looks
20th.
like you're tracking to do 1,000 again,
yes.
which is kind of interesting because you said that the Kindle Unlimited money was drying up a little bit. So hopefully the wide publishing, and then once you factor in, because it does take a long time. It usually takes 6 months to build a platform on Kobo and iBooks and Nook.
Yeah. Well, I have, I'm still running ads, and I modified my Facebook ads. The ones for the Athena Lee series include the Universal link now, and it shows the different vendors. And,
Okay.
and I just changed all my covers last year. So they're nice, sharp covers.
Right.
And that was a chore because I had talked to my cover designer. My cover designer is an author. Also, her name is Heather Hamilton Center. She does beautiful covers. She's done almost all the covers that I have on all my books.
Okay.
And last year I asked her, I said, how would you feel about doing some science fiction covers? And she goes, how many? I said, 18. So I ordered 18 at once.
Is she too busy now, or can we post a link to her website so people can find her?
You can post a link for her. I do have her booked up for June and July. I ordered another 19 covers from her this year.
Okay. I want to come back because, again, I know people are trying to do math in their head here, right?
Yeah.
Are these 18 titles? Are they 18 titles of each title is the 8 to 12,000 sort of?
No, 3 of them are box sets.
So that would be like a 30,000, 40,000 word.
Well, I started out writing my first in the Athena Lee series. The first 3 books, and people go, "Oh my God, that's not a book." And so the first book I wrote was The Forgotten Engineer, and it was 12,000 words.
Okay.
And the story behind that is, I didn't want to write. I was a reader. I was a whale reader. I was reading, 40 books a month. And because I wasn't doing anything except sitting at home reading books and playing video games.
Right.
So, and please don't think that I'm a slacker, because, I wasn't. I was on partial disability, and I just couldn't find a job. So that would be why.
Right.
My wife made just enough money to.
Are you kidding? Reading all day? That sounds like a dream.
Yeah, I know. Kind of crazy. Yeah. So, so I was familiar with KU because we were using it. But, KU expects you to read 4 books a month, not 40.
Not 40.
So I'm sure they're happy I'm not doing that anymore. So the
yeah, you're just providing content for readers now.
So author Michael Anderle, who I was friends with on Facebook, and we had gotten to the point where we're talking to each other on the phone.
Right.
He starts bugging me. You need to write a book. So, he convinced me, you got to write a book. So I wrote something, and he goes, well, let's fix that. So I finished it. We kind of did a very rough edit on it, slapped a cover on it, put it out there, and I started making money, which is kind of bizarre. Okay. So, I hadn't been writing all that long. So I did 28 books in the month in 2016. So the first one was 12,000 words. The second one was like 13,000 words.
Okay.
And then it got larger as we go. So the most I wrote for Athena Lee's were like 45 to 50,000 words.
Okay. So they were short novels. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I had been using stock art covers initially, and then I had purchased some artwork and was using those covers.
Okay. So there was some consistency then for the art.
There was, and it was all very similar. It was all spaceships and space stations and that kind of stuff. The only problem is I didn't own the artwork, so I couldn't use it for anything. So in 2017, I changed it. So I changed it all. So I had all brand new covers. So when I went wide, I had brand new covers.
Okay.
So that I think has a help to it, to where it makes things work a little bit better, because it's all fancier covers, and they're people covers, not spaceships.
Okay. So hang on. Now I want to get to this artwork, because this is critical to something you just showed me last week, which is using the artwork in a method that not a lot of people do. Can you talk a little bit about your van?
Yeah. So I had this idea, and part of it came to me from a very old 1970s movie called Smokey and the Bandit. to where
Yes.
he's driving this semi rig, and it's got a giant picture of a man holding up a stagecoach. And at one point, there's a character that makes the comment that anyone who would put that on their truck would go to a minister's funeral wearing feathers. And I thought it was funny. And I'm sitting in traffic one day in my wife's car that I had bought her, and I'm sitting in traffic, and there's these service trucks around me, with Jack's Plumbing and the electrical guy, and then there's also this neon billboard that's in front of me that has one of these ones that keeps flashing these pictures on me. And it all kind of gelled into this one thing. I went, hey, what if I was to get a van and have it wrapped with my artwork? And, people would say, that's crazy. And I said, it was kind of crazy. And I've been looking at these little service vehicles. They have these little ones. Nissan makes this little one called the NV200. And it's this little service van. So I went to Nissan and I was at Nissan. And I said, I had talked to the guy who sold me our other car. And I'm like, what's the deal with these commercial vehicles? And he says, well, we just got the licenses of commercial vehicles. I'm like, great. Can I see one? So he brought out the little one, and I'm a big man. So while I could get into the car, I couldn't do anything once I got into the car, and the steering wheel doesn't move. So I'm like, well, crap. So I said, well, my wife's like, well, we got a bigger one. So he brings out the bigger one. Okay. And it's a big one. It's a big commercial vehicle. And it rode well. It drove well. I'm like, how much is it? And I went, but I bought it. Okay. And so I bought the vehicle. It was the very first one the local dealership had ever sold. So I bought the first one, which I thought was hilarious because I'm not a plumber. So I had this big white, even though it's a big white brand new van, which my wife is like, you're driving your creepy van again. So I had it for the month of December. I had it for the month of January. So I got to learn how to drive it. It drives just like a regular car. It's not any different. It's just really hard to park. So I had this van. So I took it to a local sign company, and I gave them raw artwork. I got all my artwork from my covers without words on them, and let them pick. And I told them, these are the 3 that I like the most, but pick what you like. Okay. So we arrived on 2 covers that we like, and we put them on the van. So one side has the science fiction novel, The Martian Inheritance, and the other one has the most current Agatha book, Federal Witch book, which is called Blood of the Moon. So basically, I have a woman with a gun in her hand and a werewolf on one side, and I have a woman running from spaceships and space stations on the other side. Okay. And so we wrapped the entire van. So it's a white van turned into a black van with artwork on the side, and it says The Many Worlds of T.S. Paul. Then on the bottom, it says international best-selling author.
And so it doesn't even have a URL. It's just people are going to.
No, and on the back there's a QR code, a big QR code.
Oh, okay. So they can scan it on their mobile devices. And
you can scan it from Facebook page because I've done it. Oh yeah. So it takes you to not my Amazon page, but it takes you to, and not my website. It takes you to another site I have set up. That's kind of an author page clone. It's got my blog attached to it and revolving. It's got some stuff.
Is that so you can track to say this is the van?
It's the same author page I set up for Wide, so that way, Wide people don't have to go to Amazon, and Apple doesn't scream at me going, "You can't use that." So yeah. Okay. So because they have done that,
they will do that.
So it's set up. It's another setup. It's set up through my writers group. It says Phoenix Prime Rising. It's a long code. It's easier just to snap the little thingy. So yeah, I don't remember it off the top of my head. But so that they go, it sends you there, and then from there you can click on any of the links, and it takes you to wherever. Okay. Yeah, takes you to Amazon or wherever they're available at. So I don't have any figures yet because I've only had the van since last Monday. Right. Wrapped, that is. But it's getting a lot of notice. People turn their head. You see the neck kind of twist in traffic, and people point at it. And we parked it in front of Whole Foods for a couple hours one day, and people were like pointing. It was fun. So that's
fantastic. Okay, that's kind of cool. And again, it's something that you're doing that's non-conventional. You're and this is the thing when I talk to authors. I say you can't follow you can be inspired by other people. And I want to talk about how you were inspired by at least a few other folks, but you just did your own thing because you thought, I feel good about this. I'm comfortable doing this. and sometimes it works and sometimes it
Well,
doesn't.
and it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, you could do this to a used vehicle. I bought a brand new one. You could
Right.
do this to a used vehicle or your personal vehicle if your wife lets you, or whatever. But it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's
Right.
a commercial vehicle. You could drive. Anybody can drive a commercial vehicle. You can buy one. For
Yeah.
me to buy a 2018, it was $30,000. And then the wrap job was 4,600. So I mean,
Okay.
I didn't have to get a full wrap. I could have gotten a partial wrap, but it would have looked funny. So you, like I said, it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, it is expensive, but here's the trick: is that it will pay for itself because it's a total business write-off.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It is, isn't it? It's a marketing expense.
It is a marketing expense, and because it's my new vehicle, it is my new personal vehicle.
Right.
As I drive it, I'm advertising, so I can track the mileage.
Ah, okay.
So anytime I have to go to a conference or a convention or whatever, a book signing, I'm taking the vehicle. I'm using it as a storage unit because it's huge. You can put a queen size bed back there.
Sweet.
I put all my books and stuff, all my promotional materials, all boxed up in tubs, and they're sitting in the back of the truck.
That makes sense.
So, but yeah, it's a write off total. I mean, it's a great way to feed stuff to have write-offs with.
Am I going to be able to get a selfie with you in front of the van
It's
at
coming
NAIC
to
in the
NAIC.
fall?
I'm
Awesome.
driving it.
Okay.
Well, I live in Florida, so I'm driving it. Yeah, I'm driving it to
Sweet.
NAIC. It's my new travel vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm taking it everywhere. And so my plans is that when I go someplace other than just Tallahassee, where I live here,
Right.
is that I will tell my readers, if you see the van on the highway,
Right.
take a picture with your phone, and I will send you something.
Ah, that's sweet. That's awesome. I
So
love
radio stations have been doing that for 30 years.
that. Yeah, of course.
And I used to work in radio. So yeah, so that's kind of one of those, kind of fun things. So it's kind of a gel of a bunch of different ideas that all kind of work together, as a different concept. And yes, it is a little old schooly, and it is lots of too many ideas and things. But yeah, I do a lot of stuff that's out of the box and a lot of stuff that's old school, stuff that people say doesn't work, and it seems to work for me. So,
That's cool. Now, I love the fact that you've adapted inspiration into your own methodology. So you're like, okay, radio stations have done this. I'm going to do it. And you had said earlier that you borrowed something that you saw ML Buckman do. And was that the free story on the weekly basis?
Yes.
Or was that the free monthly? How was that?
Yeah, that was the free monthly. He does he does something called the Ides of Matt.
Yep.
He puts them out on the 14th, 15th, and he leaves them up for a couple days. So he does his current free story that he gives, not current, not free, but he has several serials that he runs, and he'll post one of them for free on the Ides of Matt. And if you miss it, he'll have a neat little tag that says, "You missed it. Catch me next time."
Yeah.
And here's the link. And me and him
or go buy it.
Yeah, or go buy it. Me and him discussed that extensively one day about, we hung out at NAIC and talked about different things and different strategies and different concepts. And that's the one neat thing about NAIC, that if you've never gone, is that it's really good for talking to other people and, learning things that you would not have necessarily learned.
Right. And it was funny because, I mean, when I saw you at NAIC last fall, you were already hugely successful. And then but you've demonstrated you never stop learning, no matter how good things are going.
Well,
right?
no, and in 2016, people says, there's no way in hell you can make money on short stories, because that's essentially what I was writing initially. But
Right.
I was also charging $2.99 for them, and that was selling them.
Mhm.
You're insane. You're not going to make any money. Well, and I did this on Stephen Campbell's podcast, The Author Biz. I mentioned to him, and I told him the real numbers, so that in 2016 I made $100,000.
Yeah.
So, 2017, I did much more than that.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you. But
It didn't go downhill. It went uphill.
It did not go downhill. No, it did not go downhill. And I'm shooting for even more this year, or at least the same.
Are you on track this year? I know it's only March, but based on your tracking from previous years, because again, this is a critical question that a lot of writers struggle with: is I'm doing okay being exclusive to Amazon. How can I do if I test the waters outside of it.
Okay, so when figuring how much money you've got or how much money you made with Amazon or anybody, it's tricky. So the first you have to count November, December because
Yes.
October is the last month for taxes. November, December is actually January, February. So if you're playing with Book Report, you need to configure it to include November, December, or you're going to screw yourself up.
Right.
So if you configure that, I've made pretty much by March. Now that we're in March, what I made the entire year of 2016.
Wait a second. That much bigger this year, and which I find fascinating. So you're still doing short fiction. You're still giving your fans something for free on a regular basis.
I'm still writing long fiction too.
And you're writing novels as well.
Yeah. I've got 30 books on my list to write this year. That's just me. That's not including my co-writers.
Okay, so this is just the stuff that you're doing solo, not the stuff that.
Well, that money's included in that, but they're gonna do probably 12 books, I think, if you count them all up.
Right.
For this year, even though they're a little bit behind right now.
Okay.
And then I'm doing 30. 12 of those are going to be 11 of those are going to be my serial that I'm doing. And the rest of them are all me. I just ordered 19 more book covers for this year, which is crazy.
So you pre-ordered these knowing they're going to be dropping on the middle of the month or the 20th.
Yeah. So I've got all my book covers done. I've got all 11 of them for the serial series. I actually bought them last month. And then I have that's not the 19. The 19 is all for my other cover designer, and those are for 4 series plus a new series and my current finishing up my Federal Witch series. I'm missing 4 covers for that. So
wow. Okay.
I like to order them ahead of time. That way I have them. I'm a pantser, but my co-writer would tell you that I'm a modified pantser, so I actually do some outlining.
Okay.
I don't really write down stuff, so my covers are my plots.
Okay.
My titles are my plots. So if I have a cover ahead of time, usually it reflects something interesting. Is that if it's a book that's written exclusively by me, the cover, sorry, not the cover, the title reflects the plot of all my books.
So that's your outline, right?
That is my outline.
Okay.
So so I like to have the cover first, of course, because other than that, I get confused. But I have been writing them down on actual paper because I'm trying to keep myself from being confused and to keep my wife from being confused, because she is helping me now more, trying to keep me on track and walk in on me when I'm playing video games. Going, "Are you writing?" No.
No, I'm researching. What are you talking about?
Yeah. She's like, that doesn't look like research. So yes, but that's.
Oh my God. So, Scott, you've given me so much to digest, so much information. Thank you so much. I'm going to want to, maybe when I see you at NINC in the fall, we're going to do a follow-up. I want to track the van. I want to see how things are going with you.
I'm going to be there a full week, so you're more than welcome.
It'll be awesome. Where's the best place where people can check you out and check out all the cool things that you're doing?
Well, they can follow me on Facebook. It's the TS Paul page is Facebook at The Forgotten Engineer.
Okay.
They can catch Fergus on Twitter, Fergus the Unicorn.
Okay.
Which is hilarious, by the way. So they can check Fergus. It's tspaul.blogspot.com if you want to catch on my website.
Okay.
There are links on there to other places. That's pretty much it. This is the first podcast, not the first I've done this year, but it's, well, actually, I think it is the first one I've done this year. I did one with Arthur Scott King, but I don't think it was this year. So, yeah.
No, very cool. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
There are so many things from this conversation with Scott that I want to talk about. But it's kind of funny. In the middle of editing this podcast episode, I had to go and pick up my son from school. So as I'm waiting for him in the schoolyard, I look down at my phone, and in my social media feed, there's this video of a speech that Arnold Schwarzenegger had given to college students about his rules for success. So while I'm waiting for Alexander, I had time to watch it. And it was intriguing how Arnold Schwarzenegger's speech fit in so well with the interview with Scott that I just listened to while editing. In a nutshell, Arnold's rules on the 6 rules on how to be successful are: number 1, trust yourself. Number 2, break some rules. Number 3, don't be afraid to fail. Number 4, ignore the naysayers. Number 5, work like hell. And number 6, give something back. Wow. Looking at things like break the rules, ignore the naysayers, and work like hell, and how much they seem to apply here. What did Scott do? He focused on something he was passionate about, stories he was interested in telling based on his own voracious reading. He ignored the wisdom being tossed around and found a path that he was comfortable with. Now, his path isn't your path. His path is his own path. He decided what was best for him and for his readers. He planned it out and he stuck with it. He tested, he failed, tried new things. He ignored the people telling him he was crazy. Arnold had people telling him that he was crazy, that he wanted to be a Hollywood star. Directors and producers said, not with that large, monstrous body and that idiotic Austrian/German accent. They told him he was crazy. There's no way that would happen. Now, just like Scott made it work with short stories, 10,000 word ebooks, with an odd price point, like $1.99 that industry stats showed would not be a good price point. I spent a long time convincing authors $1.99 was a dead price point based on stats that I had seen. But again, Scott was doing something different. These weren't full-length ebooks where $1.99 is a relatively dead price point. These were 10,000 word short stories. It was his own thing. It was his own passion. It was his own plan. And it was based on what he believed and knew his writers wanted. Think about the targeted, very specific targeted marketing that he focused on as he was building his audience. He went his own way. He forged his own path. The lesson here is trust yourself. Trust in the things that you are most passionate about and you believe in. Work your butt off. And don't be afraid to fail. You will fail. We all fail. But go back to believing in yourself and putting in that time, that hard work. That's the secret of success. I'm inspired by folks like T.S. Paul and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and those people who commit to a goal, to a vision, to a dream. They apply themselves and they work like hell. They work their butts off and they commit. They train. And Arnold talked in his speech about putting in 5 hours a day training. The same thing goes with writing and learning the craft and learning about the business and continuing to learn more about the craft and to perfect that and to keep perfecting that and to keep working on the business, to keep trying new things and to keep working like hell. I'm inspired. I've got some new ideas that I'm going to be taking forward and some new projects that I'm going to be working on. Now, these are based on things that I was inspired by from Scott, but again, I'm looking at my own goals, visions, and the things that I enjoy writing. Also considering the things I've done in the past that have worked really, really well for me and for readers, and re-examining those and wondering if there's a way for me to make that happen. Again, just trying to look at how can I find my own path, my own unique thing that I'm passionate about, and work at that. One last thing before I close this podcast. I recently started a Patreon page for the Stark Reflections podcast. you can find it at patreon.com/starkreflections. Now, I'm happy and I love providing this podcast and the content and the advice and the tips for free. I love doing it, and I do plan on continuing to do it. But even though I have a podcast sponsor, there are additional costs involved. It takes me 4 to 5 hours per week on average of working on the podcast just to keep it going on a weekly basis. I love doing it. I learn from it myself personally, but that takes me away from other areas where I can be earning. So the Patreon account that I've set up is going to just help me cover some of those costs. So for as little as $1 a month, $12 a year, you'll be able to get access to additional content, both audio and video content. There's other levels of support, and I'm excited if you're interested in checking it out. If you're not interested in checking it out, I'm just as happy. I'm delighted to have you as a listener, and I'm happy that you're listening, and I'm happy to keep doing it. That's it. Soft sell. Just letting you know about the Patreon page. And if I can earn a little bit of income from people who believe in it enough to want to put $1 towards it, fantastic. If not, that's cool too. I'm fascinated with the fact that you're listening to this podcast. I love the fact that you're listening to me right now, because there's so many other things you can be listening to. So for that alone, thank you so much. Again, this is Mark Leslie Lefebvre for the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. I had a really good time this week. I hope you did too. I learned some things this week. I hope you did too. And I look forward to episode 14 next week, when we can both learn some more new things together. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.